Oftentimes, when someone asks you why you got into gaming or how you got into gaming, that can be a hard question to answer. A hard question to think back to and reflect on. And for the majority of us, it can be very hard to look back to our past and think to what was the most profound and impactful games that made us call ourselves gamers today. But for me, it's pretty simple. I got into gaming because of a little real-time strategy called Starcraft.
Hell, it's about time.
You see, for me, growing up consisted of two things. Traveling around the country every weekend playing soccer, and playing video games with my dad while we forced my sister to watch. And while I enjoyed my time playing in soccer tournaments and going to practice every day, my true passion lied in the latter, in the escapism and the mystique wrought from the world of gaming. And the first game that my dad truly introduced me to was Starcraft. At the time, Blizzard Entertainment was at the peak of their popularity, with games like Warcraft 3 releasing a year prior and World of Warcraft just on the horizon. These were new and magical worlds to explore, and they were totally foreign to me, and some of the first games I truly got to sink my teeth into. And as you can imagine, as a kid, I found them totally and utterly engrossing. But while the flashy cinematics and memorable characters like Jim Raynor and Kerrigan hooked me on the game originally, it was something else entirely that made me stay. Because in my then admittedly short time as an avid soccer player, I had grown a taste for competition and fostered a love for winning and growth that my dad assuredly was pleased to see. But what he may not have anticipated was how this love for competition would carry over to my love for games as well. And my first big game being Starcraft only perpetuated this drive into madness. I would stay up late playing with friends over LAN, thinking of new strategies and ways to beat our opponents, which at the time were AI set to easy difficulty. But we eventually graduated to playing with real people online, which coincidentally is the same time we stopped liking the game so much. But a seed had been planted, and I had found a new home in the competitive scene of gaming. One where hard work, trial and error, and grit would see you getting better day by day.
Hey guys, what's up? So this is going to be my third game playing, and without further ado, it's a 1v1 with me, Zealot, and Gunnery Sergeant, who's actually a player in my clan.
And for the next few years, I played many classic games, including Halo, League of Legends, Call of Duty, Dota 2, and many impactful story games as well, like Dragon Age and Mass Effect. But it was the fiercely competitive nature of certain games that always kept my attention. I finished Mass Effect and loved it, but within a day I was back to Dota 2, my true love at the time. I played BioShock and was completely enveloped. But once the story was over, I was immediately back to StarCraft 2. I loved gaming as a whole, but nothing kept my attention more than the thrill of competition. The thrill of working towards a goal and getting better and better every day. But then, everything changed. I moved out and started a new journey in a foreign state going to college. I suddenly had much less time to play games between studying and unsuccessfully hitting on girls at parties, and the countless hours I used to spend playing Dota 2, Starcraft, and other competitive games in general withered away. But it wasn't just my newfound lack of time that changed. Something more subtle was happening as well. The gaming landscape was changing. Microtransactions were becoming more and more of a thing. Open worlds were taking the industry by storm. And most notably, there were not many, if any, good and new competitive games coming out. My childhood was marked by the release of countless renowned and highly impactful competitive games like Starcraft, Counter-Strike, the advent of MOBAs, tactical FPS. But this new age barely saw anything of note. New games like Quake failed upon release, and other games like Rainbow Six Siege didn't have the magic that I remembered as a kid, decades prior. So I settled. I started playing Fortnite because all my friends were, because the game was fun and, well, I enjoyed it. I started streaming after I had started my Fortnite journey and started to grow a community on Twitch that I could really come to and talk to. And it was a great time, but I was missing something. Something that I loved about gaming as a child. And well, after all this time waiting, I think we finally got it. On April 7th of this year, Valorant released into closed beta. And as probably of you already know, this was accompanied by a massive reception on Twitch due to the possibility of being able to get a free beta drop just for tuning in. Naturally, this drew myself and others in droves and resulted in the game's massive initial success with so many eyeballs watching to see Riot's newest addition to the gaming sphere. But as time went on, the hype went with it, and Valorant slowly fell in viewers as people argued that it was all hype and that the game wasn't very good after all. Now though, almost 4 months later, the game is continuing to grow and flourish, with some of the biggest grassroots esports scenes and games of all time. And this is with no large tournaments having even been scheduled yet, only the Ignition and FaZe series really showing prominence. So why is it? Why is that, despite all the naysayers, Valorant is continuing to grow day by day and find its footing as an esport where so many other games struggled to even after years of trial and error? What is it that separates Valorant from those that came before, and from other recent contenders like Overwatch and Rainbow Six Siege, Fortnite, Call of Duty? Why is Valorant the first game in years that has once again sparked my competitive edge? What is it that makes Valorant such a breath of fresh air in the scene of competitive gaming? First of all, Valorant knows what it wants to be. Valorant isn't trying to be a hybrid mix of an easy-to-play game that has a competitive side like Fortnite. Valorant is through and through, from the ground up, designed to be a highly competitive and engaging game. From the gunplay, to the movement mechanics, to the types of abilities and heroes that the Riot design team is putting into Valorant, it is very clear that this game is made to reward players that put in time and effort at honing the skills that it takes to win games and win matchups. Ultimates can be very powerful, but they're choreographed. Gunplay can be devastating, but it takes time to hone those skills. And these are the types of properties that are essential for a really astounding competitive game to take shape. You see, all games, and especially competitive games for that matter, have a sense of self and a sense of competitiveness and drive inherent to the game. For instance, at the bottom of the spectrum, we have games like Call of Duty, where while it can be hard to be phenomenally good, as it would be in any game, the shooting mechanics are, for lack of a better term, dumbed down and made easier. That way a broader audience loves and enjoys them. And on the completely opposite end of the spectrum, we have a game like CSGO, where every single step you take matters, and you need pinpoint accuracy aim to even stand a chance against above average players. Games in the middle consist of things like League of Legends and Overwatch, where mechanical skills and game sense are important, but there are also a lot of more gimmicky features that can result in more interesting gameplay for lower level players. What Valorant does so well is bridging this gap. But not by bridging it in the sense of taking both sides 50-50 and trying to make the best game out of it. Valorant is focused first and foremost on creating a highly compelling, competitive game, just like CSGO. But it adds just enough flair that the game is, for lack of a better way to say this, a lot more fun to play for people that are new to competitive games. Before Valorant even came out, I actually tried CSGO for a while, and I enjoyed my time. I got to around level 15 or 20, and I had a good time playing and enjoying the game. But at the end of the day, it was kind of boring. The gunplay was great, and the sense of satisfaction of hitting headshots and getting better was good, as it is in all games. But the game not only felt old and looked old, but it was a little bland. There was grenades, guns, and flashes, and a few smokes, and that was really it. There weren't any special abilities, any interesting characters, any backstory. It was just plain old pure competitiveness. And while this is great, and CSGO in and of its own is a great game, Valorant is finally a new competitive game that brings something new to the competitive scene of esports. There have been a handful of competitive games in the last decade, but they didn't truly hit the magic that only a select few games have been able to hit. For instance, when Quake came out, it was fun, fast-paced, but it didn't appeal to a larger audience. In games like Call of Duty, they're once again fun, but they don't have the gunplay and skill that is required to really get you enveloped and involved in the long term. Games like CSGO nailed the aspect of competitiveness, but at the detriment of making a game that, quite honestly, was lacking in a little bit of the fun factor. But now finally, we have a new competitive game that is set to shake up the scene massively. I haven't remembered having this much fun playing a competitive game since Starcraft. What made Starcraft so great was that at the highest echelons, it is probably the hardest game ever made. People like Jaedong and Faker are known across all of Korea for being absolutely phenomenal Starcraft players. But at the bottom end, what makes Starcraft so fun is the idea that you can do weird and funky strats like Nidus Worm rushes, cannon rushes, or just flying your base over and building a command center to attack your enemy. It was these fun and interesting strategies that kind of castrated themselves across the entire aspect of StarCraft and made the competitive edge of the game all that much better. But for decades now, I haven't seen a game like this. Like I said, there's games like Rainbow Six Siege that have great gunplay and interesting mechanics, but they fall flat. The art style is almost too realistic and slightly bland. But now, finally, Valorant, for the first time in, quite honestly, a decade, is the first competitive game to truly hook me again. The art style is clean yet stylized. It's easy to see characters on screen. That way, the competitive edge is really maintained. The gunplay is hard, just like in CSGO, but a little more forgiving to allow newer players to enjoy the game as well. Even if you aren't good at shooting, you can use ultimates and skills to substitute for your lack of skills there to help your team win games. And while this may seem to lower the skill gap, overall at the highest levels, it can actually increase it in certain circumstances, depending on the skills. And more importantly, in the lower echelons, it creates a game that is highly competitive, but fun to play, especially for people that are new to the scene. And that's what's important, because Valorant is finally tapping into a market that I have forgotten for so long. A market of competitive games that, while the true essence is the competition and getting better, you actually just have a lot of fun playing them too. I remember back in the day when I used to play Halo on Xbox. The game was very competitive, with people being very good at snipers and BRs, but there was a lot of other fun gimmicky things too, like running people over in vehicles, throwing sticky grenades, rocket launchers, and things that made the fun maybe slightly less competitive, but much more open source for the whole community. Valorant is the first game in forever, at least that I can remember, and that I've played, that has truly hooked me not only on the fun and engaging gameplay, but the competitive aspect that comes along with it. For so long now, I've been playing games just because they're fun, and I continue to do so, as this isn't a full-time job for me or anything like that. But I finally found a game that is more than just a way for me to sit down and forget about real life. It's something for me to strive towards, to get better at, and I feel rewarded for doing so when I haven't for so long in any of these competitive games that have come out recently. I think Valorant might just have shaken up the competitive scene forever. So yeah, guys, thanks for watching. I've been thinking a lot about how to structure my YouTube videos and what kind of content I want to do. And videos like this interest me a lot, where I just deep dive into a certain topic that I'm passionate about in gaming at the time. And let me know down below what you guys thought of the video, the style, the editing, and really your thoughts overall on competitive gaming and new games like Valorant, and whether or not you like the games coming out, or maybe you don't. Thank you guys very much for watching today. I do appreciate that. And as always, don't forget to smash that like button, hit the subscribe button. And if you want, go check me out on twitch.tv/franklygaming as well. I'd love to see you guys all there, as that's where I'm mainly throughout the week. But thank you guys all so much for watching. I will see you all on the next one.